Hello and welcome to Mandibil. This is part, how much, 19 or, I even forget, 19 or 20 of my deconstruction of Stefan Molyneux' book, Essential Philosophy. And I want to just recapitulate a few things about the recent parts, which is, or the recent part of the book I have deconstructed. The previous part of the book, half of it is dealing with free will and determinism. Half of, we are starting on morality now, right? At what is it? Page 87, right? At page 87, we are getting into ethics now, right? And he has spent the last 40 pages dealing with free will versus determinism, right? It's just, I understand that it has some importance, the free will question, but if you believe in free will, do you really need to spend 40 pages telling us about why those who don't believe in free will but in potentially in determinism are wrong about it? It just seems like it's an inverted way of doing philosophy, and the amount of time spent on arguing free will compared to the other half of that 40 pages, which is metaphysics and epistemology, right? It's like, free will doesn't even deal with epistemology. Or maybe it's a part of metaphysics. Maybe it's a part of metaphysics. I'm not even sure where to classify it. I would think that traditionally it is put within metaphysics. But I'm not even. And who cares, right? But it's in the, if you lump metaphysics and epistemology together as something you have to do before you do ethics, when the free will is inside there somewhere, right? And half of the previous 87 pages of the books is dealing with free will compared to all like existence and knowledge and colors, senses, concepts, all these very, very huge things are not really, they're just, lightly mentioned and maybe to some extent discussed. But then he spends 40 pages on free will, right? It's just unbalanced, right? It's like he doesn't have a sense of what is important and what isn't important. And then, he will probably say, but it's essential philosophy. It's not, deep dive philosophy. And then that little word, essential philosophy, can always be used as a get out of jail card for why he's not arguing rigidly in his book, right? So it's like it doesn't send the right signals to me, right? Okay, I'm not going back and doing. There might be actually a few highlights that I might. We have to go way back. No, let's leave it there and head into ethics. We are almost at part 20 now, so we need to get on with it, right? Okay. Morality and the elements. Okay, so now he has mentioned ethics and morality within free will for some reason, which I don't like to mix the menu. It's like putting the dessert in the meal in the main course, right? It's just he's cherry picking whatever argument he said. Oh, I can use that argument here. Now I'm going to use some ethics in free will, and I'm not saying it's completely ridiculous, but when you argue for essential philosophy, it has to have some certain steps you go through to get to the next point and to the next point. Okay, so now he's arguing for free will. Now he thinks that's the admission card to ethics. Why exactly is it, right? It's not. Now we turn to the heart of philosophy, which is morality. So, okay, now we turn. Why do we turn, right? Now we turn, is as if he's heard the calling from up in the skies or something like that. Now we turn to the heart. It's like Okay, are you standing there lecturing people? Now we turn to page 48 in the book or something like that. It has to follow intuitively and philosophically from your previous philosophy, right? Otherwise, it just feels disconnected. And you're choosing whatever you want to talk about because it just fits within whatever agenda you have, right? Okay. The purpose of medicine. Why do you talk about medicine? Is physical health. The purpose of nutrition is digestive health. All the research, theory, scientific examination, testing, and writing in these fields are designed with one and only one objective in mind. Why do you know there's only one objective in mind? What mind? Your mind or the other person's mind? How do you know what objective they have and that there is only one? To get you to change your behavior. No, no, it's not to get you to change your behavior. It's to give you an option that wasn't there before. That if you want to change your behavior, there's a new option here that you can choose, right? When there weren't dentists, there weren't that many options when it came to, dental work, right? Creating dentistry is presenting a new option to you that you can choose from, right? It's not to fucking change your behavior. It's not saying, well, I invented dentistry, now you have to go to the dentist, right? How stupid would that be? So, to Stefan Molyneux, morality is about telling people, this is what you do, right? It's authoritarian. It's right there in the pages. You're not left to your own thinking. It's to get you to change your behavior, right? There is little point in buying. I might highlight this one. There is a little point in buying a diet book if you do not change your diet. The cliche of the exercise machine ordered with high enthusiasm 2 a.m. that ends up gathering dust under your guest bed fits this pattern as well. There is no point in learning how to exercise if you never bother. No. That's not what you say. To get you to change your body. If I make up dentistry, right? If I create something I would call dentistry and how to operate with teeth and so on, right? Then you're not going to learn how to exercise something on your teeth necessarily, right? But you create an option that people can choose from, which weren't otherwise there previously, right? To the best of everybody's knowledge. So if you, it's not like that. Okay, now I've learned about dentistry, so now I'll have to go to the dentist or something like that. No, he says here that there's no point in learning how to exercise if you never bother exercising. It's like saying, well, there's no need to learn about dentistry if you're not going to go to the dentist. No, I had to know what dentistry is in order to figure out whether or not I want to go to the dentist, right? It's like this subjective judgment is just eradicated by Stefan Molyneux. This is the case, therefore you must do, and I have to convince you, right? So be very, 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 very careful with this kind of argumentation, right? Be very careful, because he's sneaking in something that you then can't get out of, and then he's going to say, well, you're not behaving as you should, therefore I can shoot you, or something like that, right? And he has used that term, shooting people, several times. I'm taking it fucking seriously, right? There is no point in learning. No. There is no point going to the doctor and getting a prescription if you never end up taking the med. No, that's a different kind of thing, right? Then you ask for it, right? Then if I make up dentistry and you come around and, and say, I'm going to follow dentistry and whatever the dentist tells me, and then the dentist tells you, well, you should brush your teeth every day, right? And then you don't do it. Then okay, but then you're not following the thing you have yourself chosen or you explicitly chosen to follow, right? So that's a different kind. Then that's when you have chosen to follow the principle and then don't do it. Well, then it's stop that dinging. then then you're contradicting your own behavior. But that is supplied that you're actually choosing to follow it and then reject it, right? That's not what ethics necessarily is, right? He needs to go, and it's this kind of he's sort of getting to he's working towards the point, and sort of navigating through all sorts of other kinds of philosophy that he sort of leaves out to get to the point he wants to get to make you believe that this is how to do it, right? This is bad philosophy. He's just connecting the dots in a way to attempt to remove any other, like it doesn't exist or something like that, right? That's a clear. It's like it's not discussing what is morality. What are we doing when we're talking about morality, right? And what about these elements? What are the elements? And people are left with these exclamations, and then they don't understand what it is. So that they sort of, it creates a kind of a curiosity, and then you're looking for that explanation, and then you're guided towards that explanation as a solution, right? It's a sort of a sophist trick. It's a sophist trick. The purpose of all knowledge is to change behavior. Might it just also be that you need knowledge in order to stay doing the same? If your knowledge suddenly disappeared, would you keep doing the same thing? It's an example that can't be realized, but it might. You have knowledge in order to make sure that you're going to do the same thing that you are planning to do, right? So if you get some new knowledge, is it that you're going to change behavior? You're not necessarily going to change behavior, right? And what do you mean by behavior compared to actions, right? What's the difference? If I'm doing something here with this measure stick, right? That's an action. I bang the table here, right? That's an action. Is that a behavior? What's the behavior part of that action, right? Or you don't bring in actions or anything like that? Why do you say behavior? Behavior, is that banging? Banging the table, is that the behavior? Or is it, and the action is, I am holding this object made of plastic and I'm moving it towards this other object made of wood and it makes a sound, something like that. Is that action? How do you classify these things, right? It's important. We study piano in order to improve our piano playing. We learn how to cook so we can cook better. We diet and exercise in order to become healthier. We study stay healthy, right? We study another language to better speak. It keeps, okay, you should go in this direction, go into this direction, go into this direction, go into this direction, go in this direction, right? It just keeps pounding the same thing over and over and over again. And this is all through his writing. It's like, but you do this because of this, and you also do this because of this, and you also do this because of this, and so on, and therefore I must be right. This kind of annoying, childish way of arguing philosophy, right? We learn and we study and we do this and we do that. Why don't you speak for yourself, right? You could say, I do this, I do that, right? Why do we check the weather in order to change our behavior? Bring an umbrella, apply sunscreen, whatever. There was an old video recording and playback technology called the VCR. You can still buy the machines online. Imagine getting a hold of a very early VCR and then learning how it had been programmed. It might be possible to either get the source code sitting on some. Is that a source code? Isn't it purely analog? Okay. On some dusty 5.25 inch floppy disk somewhere, or reverse engineer the VCR code. Then imagine spending months learning that code, studying the hardware specification capacities of the machine, and finding some way. But it's like you have just mentioned the words morality, and now you're bringing in a whole, pile of examples and analogies and so on, and as a reader, you lose connection with what he is trying to tell you, right? state your philosophy. And if you have a sense that this might be hard to understand, you can bring in a metaphor or an analogy to help people get to the conclusions. But you have to stay with the philosophy. All these weird examples just keeps you confused, right? It may make sense in your head when you're writing it, but that doesn't mean it necessarily will make sense for those people reading it, right? You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes or in the eyes of the reader in order to present good philosophy, right? Or present philosophy in a good way, as you said. A good at presenting philosophy doesn't necessarily mean that it's good philosophy. Okay. Then perhaps you could find some way to inject that new code into an existing ancient VCR and watch it perform better. I can't fathom why anyone would ever pursue that goal, because it would be a dismal and useless waste of time for many obvious reasons. Well, why would it be a useless waste of time? It depends on them. Lots of people who does things like that. Maybe not that exactly, but then I saw a video of some guy using cardboard boxes from Amazon. But by some chance, I came across, saw YouTube thought that I would be interested in watching that, right? It made they made a dragon out of whatever, something that would, and that could have mechanics and so on. Why would people spend time on stuff like that, right? Is that useless? Well, useless is a particularly subjective conclusion, right? Useless is your understanding of the value of what they are doing, right? I mean, there are people who collect, Gartenzwerge is called in German, garden gnomes. They collect these things, right? Personally, I find that completely useless, right? But I have my stuff. I am also a collector, right? I'm interested in postal history and stamps and so on, right? Well, other people think that is useless, right? Or at least they could understand the monetary value of what you're doing, right? But and garden gnomes would not exactly potentially be that good an investment, but that's another thing, right? So it's about what is useless and what isn't useless. It's completely subjective, right? It might be possible to justify such a hobby on the grounds that it sharpens your mind, gives you skills that might benefit you in the future or something along those lines. But I think it would be reasonable to say that anyone who spent hundreds of hours on this pursuit might be exhibiting signs of some sort of obsessive compulsive disorder or other kind of mental imbalance. So someone who's spending time thinking about philosophy for 40 years, are they exhibiting a kind of obsessive compulsive disorder? Are they? Thinking about how you think? Isn't it obvious that's a bicycle, right? Go ride your fucking bicycle. Stop thinking about it. Just do it, right? Isn't it obsessive? And isn't it obsessive? Keep telling people that my morality, my ethics book that I wrote 15 years ago and haven't changed a word in it for 15 years because I believe it's perfect. Isn't that kind of obsessive? I'm just, giving examples, right? If you were told today that you had 3 months to live, would you immediately start studying a difficult foreign language? A subculture. These are sort of a trolley problem kind of examples, right? A subculture of programmers has devoted themselves to the task of getting the old video game Doom to run on a variety of platforms, including printers and cell phones and other disparate hardware. In this case, I can only assume they are pursuing the respect of others in their subculture, along with the immediate dopamine hit of getting a code to run on something that wasn't designed to run on it. There's a... Get to the fucking point, man! You are potentially going to end up telling me whether I can shoot people or not, right? Why are you spending time, fabulating about your old fetish about computer programming, right? It doesn't seem fitting. It doesn't seem fitting. We haven't even talked about any elementary part of ethics yet. All these weird that is going to, mold you into a certain understanding. It's sort of poisoning the well kind of attempt before you get to the point. Okay, now I'm groomed you into a certain understanding, and therefore it will be easier for you to swallow the bullshit I'm going to pull on you, right? If you found some man with a variety of ancient hardware in his garage who had spent the last 5 years getting an old video game to run on everything from a scientific calculator to a monochrome printer interface, but had never told anyone of his strenuous endeavor and never used his acquired skills anywhere else, wouldn't that be a sign that he was pretty nuts? I don't know. Wouldn't? It's a sort of a rhetorical question. That is basically a statement, right? Intense effort without payoff, without benefit, is a sign of mental illness. Okay, so, but what over the other camp? What if you're a pretty lousy philosopher, but you make money out of it, and you get a certain number of fans? Does that mean it's good philosophy then? Some guy making Doom work on an old printer or something, whatever, on a calculator, scientific calculator, and get Doom to run on that. Okay, then that might be great. He's got Doom to work on it. Okay. He doesn't tell anybody. He doesn't make money off of it. Okay, but he does it for whatever reason, right? But that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing to do, just because he doesn't tell anybody else about it, right? But you can also be in the other camp. You have some pretty lousy philosophy, but you can be able to sell it like a snake oil salesman, right? And you make money out of it, making the leap that therefore it must be good philosophy just because it's popular, right? You know that the Gangnam Style guy who was the first guy to have a billion views of YouTube, as far as I remember, right? The Psy in 2012 or something. It's almost 10 years ago now, right? So he was the most popular YouTube musician at that point in time, right? So it must be the greatest music ever written, basically, right? I mean, it's like, no, not really, right? Yeah, it's cool, but, so what, right? It's just this sort of, he's tricking you into drawing a specific certain conclusion that he's grooming you into arriving at, right? So this is pure sophistry. This is not philosophy, right? Intense effort without payoff, without benefit, is a sign of mental illness. Man endlessly organizing useless items, or a woman obsessively washing her hands, or a child spending 8 hours building and breaking one particular toy. These are all signs that all is not well in the upstairs chambers. In the upstairs chambers? Why are you using stupid in the upstairs chambers in the mind, right? I bring all this up because I'm sure you are at least vaguely aware of the enormous efforts that have been poured into philosophy just over the past century or so, and how little productive and valuable meaning has come out of it, at least for the average individual. Well, I could agree with that, right? Quick, tell me what the moral principles have come out of existentialism, postmodernism, pragmatism, collectivism, relativism, or even socialism or Marxism or fascism. Have any of these ideologies or philosophies helped you make better moral decisions in your daily life? I'm not talking about political activism, but the personal moral challenges we all face. Well, I would say all these, at least to some extent, are there exactly to destroy morality, not to create morality, right? Generally, vague positive effects are claimed. Philosophy enriches and deepens understandings and brings wisdom, which are all unquantifiable positives that generally accrue only to the... Well, why are you going into these? It's so fantastic. 10 different ideologies, and philosophy have the enriching and deepen understanding. You're talking about ethics. Do some freaking ethics, man. Instead of telling me these people are bad, and these people are bad, and these people are bad, and therefore I must be good, right? It's annoying, right? Philosophy is not just about making you feel better, but about making the world better. He's sort of Jesus of philosophy. He's out to tell the world, I'm healing the world. I've come down to you to heal you, everybody. You're doing it wrong. I'm going to tell you what to do. When people are generally competent in the science of nutrition, the need for nutritionists diminishes. When people become generally competent in philosophy, the need for philosophers will diminish. Gaining significant expertise in nutrition comes with... holy fuck, it's annoying, right? Becoming competent in philosophy also comes with a reasonable expectation that you will instruct the ignorant. He freaks me the frick out, man, right? Oh, you will instruct. Oh, you're ignorant. Yes, you little peasant over there. You are ignorant. Do as you're told by your masters, who has been philosophizing for 40 years, going to tell you how to act, because you don't know what you're doing, little peasant, right? You are ignorant, and you have to do as the philosopher tells to you, right? Even philosophies that claim to pursue the moral good rarely result in positive changes in personal behavior. Maybe they don't need to change, right? How do you know? And what about this difference between behavior and action? There are philosophies that advocate for government control of healthcare. Oh, come on, man, right? He is sort of, it's not poisoning the well. He's not trying to, deflect you from something. Instead, he's trying to lure you in. He is sweetening the well, so to say, right? I don't know the exact term for the fallacy, but do they directly help you make better decisions to become a healthier person? Quite the opposite. If healthcare is free, people are more likely to neglect their health. If you think of the philosophy of collectivism, that the group should rule over the individual, it is not designed to help you make better decisions in your own life, but rather to surrender your own decision-making capacity to the mob. If you think of relativism, the argument that claims as true the position that there is no such thing as truth. I have to read that again. Relativism, the argument that claims that as true the position that there's no such thing as truth. No, I think you're violating the idea that I'm not particularly into relativism, whatever it is. I'm into philosophy, but if I say, well, unicorns doesn't exist, right? I mean, it's sort of, you're trying to, and then you're saying, well, you have to use unicorns in order to prove, you have to experience unicorns in order to say that unicorns doesn't, maybe that's a stupid argument, then maybe that's a bad example. But it's like, if you reject something as non-functional, right? You're not trying to use that, you say it's non-functional, to prove that it's non-functional, right? Saying something is true doesn't necessarily say that it's true. If you say that's an elephant and I don't experience elephant, then I say it's false, right? But it's a true statement in the sense that it's a false statement, right? I mean, you can say, is it true that it's a false to you? Yes, it's true that it's false to me, right? I mean, it's sort of these, whenever he gets into these whenever he can use that, potentially, that, well, you are using the term to argue against the term. So you're using truth in order to argue against truth, right? It doesn't work, because if something is not the case and can never be the case, you by saying it can never be the case, you're not using that case necessarily to point out that what is claimed cannot be the case. So if you say, well, there's no such thing as truth, right? That doesn't mean you're saying it's true that there's no such thing as truth, right? He's manipulating with words. He's trying to make you think that he can manipulate words and get to a conclusion about reality, right? I mean, yes, okay, I guess presenting a philosophy to some extent is that. And that's also why I'm very, very concerned about philosophy in general, because basically unless it's pure philosophy, or it's as I stated before, an obvious proposition, like that's a tree, right? Then it should be considered sophistry. If you're not trying to be sure that you are presenting your thoughts as neutral and unmanipulative as possible, then you're in the business of manipulating people. He has basically said that it's going to change people's minds. So apparently it's more important for him to change people's minds than presenting his thinking, right? His thinking is there, whatever he calls the thinking, philosophy, is there to change people's mind in order to do certain things, right? It's not presenting your philosophy and then let it be up to people for themselves. It's like the dentist who says, you have to go to the dentist because now I presented good dentistry to you, right? I'm going to say, fuck off you, right? It's not like, okay, I've made good dentistry, now you have to change your behavior to go to the dentist, right? That's not how it should be, right? You're not ordering people around, right? You shouldn't be ordering people around. And if people are so ignorant, right, and a large majority of people are considered ignorant, why would you try to convince them, right? Unless the agenda actually is you're not trying to convince them. You are trying to get at those people who might be able to be changed, but is not sufficiently well versed in philosophy to understand that you are full of shit, right? Then they're lured into your cult, and then they stay there because you protect the sort of, as long as you go along with everything that Molyneux says, you're being protected by him and, giving him money and do as he told you, right? So this will eventually lead into a cult, because philosophers is like, I have presented this grand solution to everything. It must be implemented, right? I must tell people they should do it, right? And if they don't do it, well, I want the government to do it, right? They have to do this because this is the right thing to do, right? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. And I don't care that it doesn't work. What's important is presenting fucking good philosophy. If you're concerned about good philosophy, your concern should be directed toward presenting good philosophy, or at least starting by making good philosophy and then presenting it in a pure and neutral fashion. So you don't lead people on, right? It's never going to work, this. Never in a fucking billion years, right? Being a Marxist may encourage you to spend your time attempting to establish a dictatorship to transfer control of the means of production to the state. But how does that goal help you make better moral decisions today, tomorrow, or ever? The philosophy of pragmatism may encourage you to judge an idea by its effects, rather than by its principles, but it does not help you make any better moral decisions today. It generally encourages you to act randomly and judge over results over time. I can't imagine that a diet book called Eat Randomly, See If You Get Thin would ever sell. A book on ethics called Kill Today, See How You Feel. That's kind of funny. Would not be particularly ethical. The general slogan that praises the greatest good for the greatest number does not help you in your own particular life. It is designed, of course, to get you to vote for more and more government power, since collective benefits can, in general, only be secured and enforced by the coercive might of a centralized state. Such philosophies are either designed to make ethics murky, confusing, and messy, or they are designed to get you to vote for bigger and bigger government and another. So he's framing what is going on, or whatever it's called, right? He's sort of saying, well, all the others are bad philosophers. They're bad philosophers, they're bad government, they're bad, everything is bad, right? I'm the only one who has the solution, right? It's sort of, he doesn't even have to do philosophy. It's just, sophistry for a few, 4 or 5 pages, and these are bad, these are bad, these are bad, there's only me who's the right solution, right? It's like, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, this is not fucking philosophy, right? This is not, it's not good philosophy. It's very, very bad philosophy. So it's just, it's, I hadn't any high hopes about this, right? But I'm actually disappointed that it's so bad, right? He haven't, I mean, was it page 87? So page 87. Now we are at page 90, the 4 pages, and he still hasn't talked about any ethics, right? He is framing it and presenting, sweetening the well and poisoning the well, and coming with all sorts of arguments for what is not good ethics, right? Instead of presenting his own ethics, just get to it, right? Leave all the old bullshit away. Just present your fucking ethics. You don't have to enlighten people that your ethics must be good whenever we arrive at it, because all the other ethics is so bad, right? So it's also like, okay, if everything that everybody else is handing you as food is, old grass and pebbles and tree bark and rainwater to eat, and then you come with, a pile of burnt porridge, right? And you're saying, look how great it is. Yes, it's great compared to the pile of shit the other people are serving, right? But it doesn't mean that burnt porridge is great food, right? So it's like, yes, if you want to make the one-eyed king the best philosopher, you have to say how blind everybody else is. Then the guy with one eye is actually a great philosopher. But that's not good philosophy. But that's a relative to the other shitty kinds of philosophies, right? And by framing it this way, he makes it easier to swallow whatever it is he's going to pull on you, right? It's also a weakness if you have to bring in your opponents, so to say, to tell you how good you yourself is by diminishing how bad or telling you how bad everybody else is. It's a sign of weakness that you can argue directly, leaving everything else by the wayside and saying, I'm going with pure philosophy. This is the philosophy that follows about ethics from the previous chapters. This is the case, that's the way I see it. This is the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Therefore, I arrive at this conclusion. Right? That's good philosophy. That's a sign of philosophy that works. Because you don't have to tell everybody how bad other kinds of philosophies are, right? So it's a sign of weakness. It's a sign that he can't argue. He can only manipulate you into saying, and therefore I'm right. Right? Okay. Let me see. Such philosophies are either designed to compare this to Christianity. The 10 Commandments are not collectivist in nature, but are aimed directly at the individual or his own or her. Oh, so now you have to cuddle up to Christians, right? The question, what would Jesus do, is specifically trying to evoke a personal reaction in a moment. Are you sure about that? Yeah, it sounds like it on the surface. But Christianity is hardcore authoritarianism, right? Where the hell did these 10 commandments come from? It's not from some ghost in the sky, right? How are they argued, right? Why are you talking about religion, which is mysticism, rather than philosophy? Why are you bringing that in, right? It gets it's not even, not only are you very bad at arguing, or at least presenting philosophy, right? And then you're bringing all this stuff like politics and religion, and also that has nothing to do with good philosophy. Present your fucking thinking, right? I'm going to jump over this Christian. The destruction of individual conscience that grew out of Darwinism, materialism, socialism, atheism was one of the greatest catastrophes ever to hit Western civilization. In fact, it has been the persistent undoing of Western civilization ever since. Darwinism. I mean, it's almost an insult to Darwin to call it Darwinism. It's like Darwin, you have to follow my thinking. He's just looking at animals and giving you some idea of why some die and some survive. Why are some species there and some species aren't there? Or one particular qualities of that species compared to other qualities of that same species make those survive rather than these people, these instances or individuals. What's it called? Animals, individuals. That they die out, right? Well, that's all it does. He's not telling you what to think, right? It's like the first guy who invented dentistry, and he was called Bob. So now, whenever you're going to the dentist, you are doing Bobism, right? Or dentistryism, right? This is ridiculous. Come on. The storm and the self. An analogy. What is this? The storm and the self? Imagining a dark village. You fucking just started talking about morality and the elements. What the fuck are the elements? When I'm thinking of the elements, I'm talking about earth, water, fire, whatever, right? What are you doing? And then this is the storm and the self, an analogy? Imagine a dark village battered by I have to keep this one for the next part, right? Because it doesn't seem to, on the surface, it doesn't seem, there is no God swarm up the wet walls and start pounding on the roof of the church, tearing it away. It gives me the fucking creeps, man. Okay. I just say, it's fucking ridiculous. You start a chapter about morality and you talk nothing about your morality because it's not a worldwide essential philosophy that has arrived through you as a medium and you're presenting it to the ignorant population. No, it's your philosophy. It is not essential philosophy. It is your philosophy I'm interested in. I can think for myself. I might have my own philosophy and I might disagree with you, right? It's no. It's not me. It's not me. It's essential. I'm just presenting philosophy to you. Right? But who the fuck made up that philosophy you're pretending? Because it seems you do not necessarily accept all other philosophy as being valid. Because you just railed about how bad other kind of philosophies and philosophers are. So how do you pick and choose this, right? But it's called essential philosophy. It's just like, it's so left-hand and bullshit. It's hard for me to believe that he's willing to put his name on crap like this. And, well, I guess it's a great thing because then I know how bad he is at philosophy, right? He has nothing to give you, right? It's just, he's pulling left and right out of his ass and then pretending to be philosopher, right? And then soaking it in sophistry and manipulation and fallacies until you're so confused you're going to say, I guess Stefan Molyneux is right because I'm so stupid and ignorant. I'm one of the blind people. I'm ruled by the one-eyed king, Okay, see you in the next part.